Welcome to Simply Enough. This is Zachary and Elizabeth, and thanks for tuning in.
If you're liking our podcast, we'd love it if you'd share with your friends and family.
And then rate and review to raise our visibility and spread the message of enoughness.
We love you, and remember, you are simply enough.
Just as you are.
Period.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Simply Enough. I'm Mr. Zachary Leonard.
And I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ignacio, and I'm already laughing at myself because of what I'm about to reveal in this kickoff of this episode. Zachary, as a surgeon, and especially not just as a surgeon, but I've just kind of always known or felt called to be a physician. So my life, in many ways feels like it's been very by the book, like, this step, then that step, and then this step, and then that step. And if this, then that. And, there's a reason for everything kind of thing in terms of, I'm very driven by, my why in life. In every situation, I kind of look for the why. And so that way I can come up with a because then I'll do this next kind of thing. So everything I just feel in my life, God has blessed me in terms of guiding my steps and my path truly by what feels like divine intervention, that it just feels like almost every step, there was a reason. And that's just kind of my mindset. I am not a fly by the seat of your pants kind of person. I'm just very much, a surgeon, and as much as possible, hell breaks loose all the time and storms, swirl. But for the most part, trying to live a life of precision, whether it's by thought, feeling, or action. So I struggle with doing things for no reason, or if the reason is purely for me, because I wanna, it's amazing how I stop myself or do it halfway and then talk myself out of it. And where I'm going with this is, so of course, everybody, the drinking game, I'm going to bring up Ted Lasso. God, they really need to support, like Apple TV needs to be a sponsor of our podcast. But so, Zachary, and anybody who's a regular listener or viewer, thank you very much. I love Ted Lasso and all things Ted Lasso. And of course, Ted Lasso was created by Jason Sudeikis. And he actually, it appears that he really befriends his co-stars. And so they're very, very supportive of each other, not just professionally, but personally. And so I've come to learn in my, many deep dive Google search of all of the actors and even writers of Ted Lasso, I came across the Steps of Faith Foundation, which is Jason Sudeikis' friend from Kansas City, who I believe he himself is an amputee, and also a percussionist, which is amazing because, of course, as a percussionist, you need your legs. And so this friend, forgive me that I, off the top of my head, I don't remember the friend's name, the person who founded it, but founded the Steps of Faith Foundation. And it is to, raise money and awareness for amputees, for payment for prostheses, especially for the uninsured or the underinsured. And, as an orthopedic surgeon, limb salvage, like this very much speaks to me. And pre-Ted Lasso, Jason Sudeikis was, one of the founders of this annual fundraiser kind of comedy concert and music concert called Thundergong. And he has been a part of it since its inception. But now with Ted Lasso, it's, that much bigger. And even pre Ted Lasso, he brought in his, Saturday Night Live friends, his Second City comedy troupe friends. So it was already, a star filled, event. But now even more so, like last year, he had Brendan Hunt, Coach Beard, and, who knows who else is going to be there. So totally on a whim. Well, first of all, I talked myself into it by saying, well, this supports amputees and this is so related to orthopedic surgery and all this kind of stuff that, I signed up for the newsletter for updates of when the concert tickets were going to come on. And, being in Hawaii, being 6 hours behind when Ticketmaster releases it, like I even set my alarm and everything, while the whole time thinking, what am I freaking doing? I'm in Hawaii. The Thunder Gong concert is going to be in Kansas City, Missouri. Like, who goes from Hawaii to Kansas City, like on a whim? No offense to my dear Midwest friends and family, but still, right? Like, this is in November, right? So who goes to Kansas City from Hawaii in November? And this is like a comedy music concert. So it's not like it's, going to be like Grammy winning music performances or anything like that. Like it's a fundraiser, right? But sure enough, I got on Ticketmaster early in the morning, set my alarm, and I got tickets. And it was so fun. I mean, it wasn't not at all anything like, Taylor Swift or anything. It did not break Ticketmaster, but definitely like as I hemmed and hawed while on Ticketmaster, the tickets were being gobbled up. So I'm just kind of like, oh, screw it. I will purchase tickets. And so I did, and I purchased tickets. And then after, of course, buyer's remorse, I'm like, what am I doing? So then, I'm thinking, I bought 2 tickets and I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to invite Zachary. And then, Zachary has his face on his face. Zachary can't come. But, Gracie, my daughter was like, oh, I'll totally go.
Yes.
And so then I convinced myself, oh, see, so I'm not just doing it for me, because what better thing than to kind of have an adventure with my beloved daughter, who is like, my bestie. I like, this is a great reason. So it's a fundraiser. Yes, there'll likely be, Ted Lasso and Saturday Night Live, actors and actresses and all this kind of stuff. And then, it's a adventure. Life is meant to be lived with, adventure, and not everything has to be by the book. And I was excited for all of like a week. Now, as it's getting closer, I've already asked Gracie, so Gracie, what is your exam schedule like? Like, are you sure in any way? Because, the most important thing is that I spend time with you. So, I even thought when I didn't think that, Uncle Zachary could come, and if you weren't going to be able to come, I just thought, hey, it's a great charity donation to buy the tickets. So, and the tickets weren't expensive. So it'll just be a good charity donation. It was fun, to be on Ticketmaster and have the idea of it. Like, I'm already talking myself out of it
right now.
And to be perfectly honest, the concert is Veterans Day weekend, which is November 11th. It's now, we're in mid-October. This episode will publish, in a couple of weeks. So I still haven't totally decided if I'm going to go or make things easier for my daughter and actually just switch the tickets. I'll still take the weekend off, but switch the tickets to come and visit my daughter in college again, which I always love. So, but at least there, like I'm rationalizing. I'm such a kind of cerebral person. It's so funny. Like, I'm moved by the heart. I'm very much a heart person, but it's amazing how cerebrally I can rationalize away whatever might be in my heart to, already telling myself, well, it's great purpose for me. It's more purposeful for me to come and visit, my daughter, feed her good food, have a hotel room for her to relax, and, and it's less stressful for her. So it's more purposeful that way, and I just find myself falling back into my old ways of like, well, there's always got to be a because to the why, so if there's no purpose other than just me and I wanna,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
then I wanna isn't a good enough reason. So pivot. So that's what I'm struggling with.
So we in the
Type
pregame.
A plus personality that I
Oh
am, surgeon that I am. I
gosh.
don't say that proudly, by the way. I'm not patting myself on the back saying type A plus personality. Trust me, it's a pathology and neuroses. I know it.
Okay, I just want to say before we get into the kind of analysis of it, which is what we do, I don't want to leave you hanging, and I don't want to leave you hanging because listeners, in the preparation, the little locker room talk for this, dear sweet Elizabeth we were coming up with this topic, and Elizabeth said, well, I have one story. And I said, well, just give me a minute, because I am a similar person. There always has to be some kind of reason or why. And other than I just want to, that's not even a phrase I use often. So like even coming out of my mouth, like if you're watching on YouTube, you can see like I kind of grimace at the idea of saying, well, I just want to. I'm sorry, what? Like I don't do
Yeah,
things just because I want to.
exactly. That's why I even almost like mitigate it and like dismiss it by saying, I don't even say I want to, as if there's like strength and power in it. I have to like lessen it by saying, well, I wanna.
I want
Like only, you know what I mean? Because like I feel childish in going by, well, I want to,
yeah.
so I'm going to make it even more childish by saying, well, I wanna, so that I
Yep.
can kind of take the edge off,
Yep.
make a joke about it, be self-deprecating, and rationalize that I wanna or even I want to isn't
Yep.
a good enough reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I don't want to leave you hanging. So before we get into like the discussion about the enoughness of the reason, I just want to give you a story so that, I'm joining you in fully being transparent that we are similar, like-minded people. Elizabeth, I don't know if I've ever told you. Do you know that I auditioned for American Idol
No,
twice?
I didn't. No, I didn't. Good for you.
Yes. Well, okay.
Good for you.
So this this was an I wanna moment.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, at the potential of meeting Jason Sudeikis or being among these people that you love and admire and being in the room and everything, yes, we can come up with all of the reasons, like auditioning for American Idol and getting the chance to become a famous musician and everything that comes with it. Sure, there are legitimate reasons for all of that, but I decided that I wanted to audition, and I was living in New Jersey at the time, and the closest audition town was Birmingham, Alabama. Okay, I know. And it worked out because of my teacher schedule. Like that was the time that I could do it that didn't interfere with school year or whatnot. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to drive down to Birmingham, Alabama, and a friend of mine went with me. And as I'm driving down there, I'm kind of having that moment that you're talking about, which is like, what am I doing? Like, first of all, I mean, it's a 1 in a million chance. There's just so many people that audition. I know I have a decent voice. Do I have the kind of voice that would then get me past the rounds? And, just all of that, like, well, what do I say when somebody asks me? Like, why did you do that? Like, what's my reason? And I really couldn't come up with anything other than I just wanted to. Like, I just wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then, so kind of to your point, like as the time is getting closer, I'm getting down there, right? Birmingham, Alabama, of all places, like which, like for a queer person, if we have listeners in Alabama, I am not saying anything disparaging about Alabama. My impression at the time was like, I don't know if this is a place where I am going to feel totally safe. It was a lovely experience. We met lovely people, so it was nice to kind of break through some of those some of those perceptions that I had. But I show up and there's already a line of thousands of people. Okay, then we get into the stadium and there are tens of thousands of people in this stadium, and they set up these tables on the floor, and you go down essentially in groups of four, and you get 10 seconds to just sing, and then that's it. You're done. And you either make it past the next round, and you literally watch people go into like one vom, which is like, like kind of like where the athletes will come running out of like a tunnel.
Yeah.
You either go one way and that's if you got a called back, or most of the other people are going in the other direction. So you're just seeing thousands of people go. And the reality of your chances becomes so visually apparent. You're like,
Mm.
there's really a very slim chance that you have something that will catch their eye or their ear and you'll go on. And I'm sitting in the stadium after being up all night, in line all night, just like, what am I doing? What? I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, auditioning for American Idol after driving however many hours from New Jersey. What am I doing? And of course, I didn't make it, right? Um, and on the drive back, had that moment of like, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. And then I was so proud of myself for doing it that when they came the next year, maybe it was the same season, they came to New Jersey and I'm like, well, I'm gonna audition again. The stakes were a little bit lower in that regard. But like you, as it got closer and I'm in it, I'm like, what the hell is my type A butt doing in this seat auditioning for American Idol
Mm-hmm.
in Birmingham, Alabama?
Good for you, though.
Okay.
See, to the outsider, I'm like, you go. Good for you,
Which is
especially
what
because you don't regret it.
I don't, but I'm saying the same thing to you. I mean, you texted me, I'm like, yes, I wish I could go, kind of thing. And so, other people will champion you in that moment of like, yes, I want to do this. And yet we don't champion ourselves and saying that's enough of a reason, like I
Yeah.
wanna, you know what I mean?
I'm laughing because while you're talking about this story, and especially it was a dream of yours, so hey, why not go for the dream? So that alone is, if anything, the most important
Yep.
because or
Yep.
why, right? Is because it's your dream. And so, you don't want to leave anything,
Yep.
left to chance. So whatever it is that you can control, you're going to do it. The funny thing is in a tangential way, um, my becoming an orthopedic surgeon, actually, which one would think, especially because I'm the one that actually opened this episode this way,
Mm-hmm.
in that every step of my life has been via divine intervention, almost like one foot right in, one foot after the other,
Mm-hmm.
step by step, um with surgical precision kind of thing. When I honestly reflect back on why I'm an orthopedic surgeon, that actually is the biggest I wanna ever in my life. And the reason why I say that is um, I kind of didn't wanna. I didn't want to be an orthopedic surgeon because of, you know, being female,
Yep.
in a heavily alpha male dominated profession, a small female, a immigrant female, um, and just there are so many other specialties from which to choose. And I kind of tried to rationalize and talk myself into, well, what about OBGYN? Because, that's surgical, but also, you might like that, the miracle of life. Okay, well, what about, cardiac surgery? You love cardiac physiology. And I really, that the rational cerebral mind was really telling myself not to pursue orthopedics because it's just an uphill battle. And when push comes to shove, that like still small voice was just, but I wanna, because that's where, no matter how long the hours were of working, I was just in flow and the time just went by quickly. That was just where I felt I wanted to be. And so, what the hell? I am going to go for orthopedic surgery, even though people constantly were telling me, women can't be orthopedic surgeons. What are you thinking? You can't be a mom, all this kind, like, you won't have a family life, all of this kind of stuff that I cerebrally took in and even wrestled with and rationalized. And yet, at the end of the day, how funny that now that I look back on it, that was my biggest I wanna moment. And look what came from it.
Uh-huh. And in preparation for this episode, listeners and viewers, Elizabeth was saying, "Well, I really only have one story." And now look, in kind of processing this out loud, I mean, that is transformative. I mean, that is a
That's
big
my life.
story.
That's my
It's your
adult
life,
life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to think about when I made my list of potential what the hell moments, because they don't happen that often. I said to you, they do rise to top of mind. Um, I recognize that most of these times, upon reflection now, were really truly moments where that inner voice, that inner alignment of self was like getting quite loud. And that
Mm-hmm.
loudness was actually me taking care of me. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
for you, that sounds like exactly what happened, right? Like, yeah, the cerebral mind was working in conflict with that like internal sense of self and that internal pull. And thank goodness that internal pull won. You know what I mean?
Right. So that's where we have to be mindful of, who is saying the I wanna,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very easy to be quick to be dismissive of that I wanna in our head, but get in touch with the I wanna coming from the heart. And that really might be the way you're called to be.
Mm-hmm. So to your point about recognizing those moments when there were like a what the hell moment, and then looking at your life now and not going so far down the road of like regret. But as you were talking about now being an orthopedic surgeon, and what happened um, to put you on that path and really work you away from whatever cerebral messages you were getting, I talked myself away from going into performing arts as for my undergraduate. And
Mm.
I in that battle of like, well, I want to, I I lost that battle cerebrally. I don't necessarily live with regret. And I don't want to make this an episode about regret, but the inverse of a what the hell moment was, the
Well, those are two different things, though. So I just want to make a distinction, love, and we can
yeah,
cut what I'm about to say right now. But obviously, in I wanna, there can be oh what the hell, and in oh what the hell, there can be I wanna, but they still also can be different.
yeah,
That's the thing between you and me of like, I can actually come up with a lot of stories of oh what the hell, because that's a little bit of like, well, I don't care about embarrassment, or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
thing. But the I wanna, that's a different self narrative. That's a different conversation in one's head, right? Is the I wanna. So I just wanted to make that distinction before we continue.
I think it's an important distinction, not only from my own thinking about this episode, but also in the teasing out of like the giving listeners the opportunity to think about their I wanna moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like in the case of pursuing or not pursuing musical theater or performing as a degree, that really was an I wanna moment. And
Mm-hmm.
I truly was like, I looked at programs, but I also thought, I'm from a lower middle class family. The idea of going to college already is a big step, let alone how are we going to pay for it? What is that going to do to my family's financial situation? Is that a guaranteed path? Like, am I choosing a
Mm.
degree that is what are the your career paths look like for somebody that pursues that at Broadway, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but there was still that part of me that was like, but I want to do this. I really want to do
Mm.
this. And I talked myself away from it. So I think it's so critical that we're teasing out the what the hell versus there's something in us that's saying, hey, this is an alignment of self.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we do with it. In this case,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pursue. I went to, and I still get to perform. That's still a part of my life. But upon reflection, that was an I wanted that lost to well, I need a secure job. I need a secure degree. I need to pursue a more rational kind of program, so to speak. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for making that distinction tremendously. I think it's so clear and actually helps a lot.
Because there's a difference, right, in terms of oh what the hell, like we just talked about oh what the hell and I wanna, those are similar but also kind of different gradations, if you will. And oh what the hell is a little bit of a um whether or not you're going to be embarrassed kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And when we're talking about the I wanna, that's a deeper stirring beyond just pleasure. So it's not like, well, I want to have the chocolate cake, so I'm going to have the chocolate
Yep.
cake. We're not talking
Yep.
about that. I wanna. There is this strong inner pull that it behooves us to pay attention to
Mm-hmm.
and be mindful of, um, that it's a stirring, a pulling, a longing beyond just pleasure. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where we can give ourselves permission to listen to the I wanna when it's not just momentary, temporary
Mm-hmm.
pleasure. I think that's the difference between a childish, I wanna
Mm-hmm.
versus, I don't want to eat Brussels sprouts. I want to have chocolate cake for dinner.
Yep.
So there's what's the pleasure, what's momentary versus this kind of deeper stirring or longing or pulling.
Mm-hmm.
That is the adult I wanna.
Mm-hmm. My
I
so my
should say
husband.
adult, by the way, and forgive me,
Yeah, yeah.
the more emotionally mature. I should say that, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the I wannas can happen when you're in college.
Mm-hmm.
The I wannas can happen in high school. So I don't, I should not have said, childlike I wanna. That was just for sake of
Right.
being illustrative, right? Like, the
Mm-hmm.
5-year-old toddler
Yeah.
versus this stirring, this longing, this calling
Mm-hmm.
of I want to.
Mm-hmm. Incredibly clear to me. And I also, for myself, as this episode has unfolded, gives me further clarity of some of the stories that I wrote down in preparation. I get to think about them more now. Like, was this a what the hell, or more of an I wanna? And what I
Mm.
find incredibly helpful about that is I actually am learning more about myself in the reflection on these I wanna moments. Okay. And so then it gives it even more weight. So, like, one of the items on my list is when I dyed my hair white. Okay. I think many could say, oh, that was a what the hell moment. Your hair is going to grow back, like, or you could cut it if it didn't look good or whatnot. And yet, that truly was an I wanna moment, not a what the hell, because it was deeper. It was more tied to me and where I was feeling pulled. And while it may seem like, oh, it's just your hair, it was about representation of self and representation of
Yes.
identity and how I wanted to show myself to others. Right. So
Yes.
I put that down. And as you were going through it, I'm looking at the list. I'm like, no, that wasn't I want a moment.
Mhm.
And then I can actually look at that moment and actually understand it deeper and appreciate what a moment that was for myself, as opposed to just, I don't want to say disregarding it, but lightening the impact of it. So
Yeah.
huge
It was a
distinction.
it was a statement, it was a self-declaration of you. And I think a lot of not enoughness
Mm-hmm.
might come from not honoring the deeper, stronger, and possibly even repressed I wannas
Mm-hmm.
because we are likening the I wannas to the oh what the hell or
Mm-hmm.
to the more emotionally mature I wanna because it's out of pleasure
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to I want to because it's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the two differences.
So let me share a story that came to mind, and if we can just workshop what, you know, I don't want to say the two camps, because we never talk about a binary system, right? But like, if we're just kind of setting those goalposts up, I would love to just share and then see where we go with it. So my husband and I got married in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and we tend to go back to Colorado every year. There's a really cute downtown in Steamboat Springs, and naturally we know all the shops, we know all the things that they sell, but every time we're there we go in and there is an art gallery that we would go in. And it's mostly photography, nature photography, because we're in the mountains. And there was this picture of this bison, and it's a female bison. There's like a little bit of straw coming out the mouth, but and there's just snow all around the bison's head. And the eyes, while very dark, there's something very powerful about the look of the bison just staring at you. Okay. I mean, it's an expensive piece of art. I mean, this is, a very well known photographer. And so we would go frequently. And every time this piece of art just like spoke to me, like there was just something truly powerful about this piece of art. And in going again and again, and the price tag or where it would go in our place, like something, this was an external thing, but there was something about this piece that I was very much drawn to and felt like I wanted this. I wanted this in my life. So eventually we bought it, and it's one of my favorite things. It lives in our house, and we always think about where exactly that's going to go over other pieces. So it wasn't so much necessarily a moment of self in the insofar it was like a decision of something that I, like choosing a job or something like that, but it was like something external that I felt brought me so much joy, brought me so much uh, life energy, etc. And the that deep part of me was like, I want this, was fighting against, well, it's expensive, where's it going to go, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually that I want one out. And every time I look at it, I'm so proud that voice won and that it's there. So I just throw that story immediately as you were talking, that I was drawn to that kind of that, I don't want to say external, but that moment of like buying something as a, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I'm just curious
But it wasn't
what's,
external because it actually stirred something in you
yeah.
that is longer lasting. And it wasn't just the mere look of it and the possession of it. It was deeper
Yep.
because it was an experience of the art. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just the possession of the art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't think it was just um, oh, what the hell? It makes me happy. It gives me
Sure. Yeah.
pleasure. Right. It was more, I want this. It speaks to me. It's going to continue to speak to me. And sure enough, it is still speaking to you. So it was the experience of it, um, and experiencing of it adds to you. It
Mm-hmm.
makes you feel a certain way. It's not just the, oh, this is a possession in my collection kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So to me, by your description, that is more of a inner stirring, pulling, longing of, I want that. It's a extension or an expression of me. It resonates with me as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to, oh, what the hell? I want it. I like it. It looks good. That's a pleasure thing.
Yeah.
So that's an
Yeah.
oh, what the hell versus a I want it. That also, this is a totally different tangent, probably different episode, but that's where it's important in looking not just at price or cost,
Yep.
but actually instead looking at value.
Mm-hmm.
And when one looks at value, that is the answer, that is the because, to the why are you purchasing it. So the value of it answers the why you want it, and that value is priceless and immeasurable regardless of the cost or price of the sticker tag.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
It does. And as we prepped for this episode, I'm finding uh, that moving away from the what the hell to a clarity about the I want, also in some ways, as I started thinking about some of the stories and like, oh, I'm a type A personality, there's got to be a reason or whatnot. I wrote the word spontaneous, but I think that spontaneous moves more into the oh, what the hell, where there still can be tremendous discernment in the I want, but it doesn't need to
Mm-hmm.
go any further than I want because I want. And so thinking about that artwork, or even becoming an orthopedic surgeon, like I myself am finding, oh, this isn't about just a spontaneous on the whim, oh, what the hell moment. There's still room for the quote unquote type A's, myself,
Mm-hmm.
to have the I want moment, but also lean into there doesn't need to be any other reason beyond it. So it can be in the moment, but can also be thought about, like, and then thinking about the value, et cetera, that you were talking about. So I'm even like moving away from some of the notes that I wrote down because you're helping clarify one idea of what the hell, kind of on the whim, purely for pleasure type of thing, versus this deeper, more um, kind of thing. That was
Yes.
so poetic and beautiful.
It was though. It was though because it was authentic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I uh, also I've got a bunch of stories and they all work.
Thank
I
God.
I've talked before on the podcast about studying abroad in London, and the studying abroad in London was an I want moment. Again, being a son of a working class family, and the idea of traveling internationally, and the money that it's a different kind of money when I was already on scholarship, and now there needs to be living money, and you're in a country where the currency is the exchange rate doesn't work in favor of Americans,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're in a whole different country where there's opportunities to take the train and go see other places. Really, I could have talked myself away from the I want. And I'm so grateful that I didn't, because I've got all these memories and everything. But being able to study abroad was truly an I want moment. I mean, really,
Mm-hmm.
there were a list of because, but that really there weren't. The number one reason, truly, upon reflection, was the I just want to.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, all of the other experiences of, like, the train
yep.
and visiting other countries, that's corroborating, supporting evidence, or reason. But ultimately, yes, there was this inner stirring, calling, longing of I want.
And in that, then I got to have subsequent I want moments. Okay. And which was how much that 6 months of my life, and now this is during September 11th, right? So there was a whole international crisis going on. There were still these beautiful moments of like, I did this because I wanted, and then not that I needed it, further reason or justification or evidence that this was part of my path. This was part of who I was supposed to, or the experience I was supposed to have. I was very fortunate in that I was in Vienna. We had a week break, and I took a friend of mine, and we went kind of through a few Eastern European cities. Well, Carmen, the opera, was playing for one night in Vienna.
Mm.
I didn't have clothes to go to an opera, right? And I also didn't really have the money to buy new clothes. It was such a not a what the hell moment, but like I needed to see this show. I needed to be in this country watching this soprano perform this role, not knowing who she was, that she was one of the most famous Eastern European operas or singers of all time, getting to do this, not knowing what it was going to cost, etc. Showed up at the box office, didn't speak the language, managed to get a $20 ticket,
Wow.
the last one, went to a department store around the corner, managed to find clothes for like next to nothing. And then all the stars aligned because I leaned into that decision of like, I just want to do this, then everything else that were kind of the reasons, the cerebral reasons against it, faded away because,
Totally.
you know what I mean?
Yes, I absolutely do.
I can still remember sitting, and she's singing, the quintessential piece, the habanero from Carmen. Like, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it. I still remember that experience, and that was not just a what the hell, because that was like I want to do this, like not an I
Yes.
wanna, like I want to do this.
Yes.
That came after another I want, which was I want to go to London.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So
I
wow.
absolutely do. It's as a parent, I'm going to say that as a parent, right, our natural reflex is to protect and keep our child safe and not want our child to experience, hardships or difficulty or heartbreak or rejection, whether it's job or application, graduate school, whatever. And in doing so, it's really easy to squash our children's dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to speak from my own experience, which is, you know, um, I love what I do. I love being a surgeon. The healthcare industry as it is, I'm not loving it, but my what I do as a surgeon, I just have no doubt that I was called to do
Mm-hmm.
this, and I love it. And I wish the healthcare industry was different, a different experience, because the reality is the healthcare industry is as it is, at least here in America. I lifelong have been telling my children, do not pursue medicine. Um, though I can just tell that they would both be excellent. They really would.
Yeah.
They would be wonderful. But because the natural reaction of mama bear is to
Mm-hmm.
protect and shield and prevent, like
Yep.
I said, all through my daughter, my daughter said that she wants to be a physician, just like I did, since she could practically talk. So all through her whole young life, she would keep saying that that's what she wants to be a physician. As of now, she wants to be an orthopedic surgeon. Now, to that, I will tell her, keep your eyes open,
Mhm.
because going in with a preconceived notion, you'll be surprised what you might be called to do, right? But having said that, just in general, here I'm like kind of squashing the dream of her being a physician. And now that, she is in college, but even like when she was a junior and senior in high school, where, she's, more mature, articulates, very eloquently, it's just clear that she wants to be a physician. She wants to be a doctor. And I mean, here I'm like, okay, fine. You want to be in healthcare and you want to help people. Well, there's nurse practitioner, CRNAs. Like, I have this laundry list of how she can, be a physician's assistant, how she can still be in healthcare, but not go down the long slave labor road of to become a physician.
Mhm.
But it's just very, very clear to me that it is her calling and that's what she wants to do. And I honor her for that. And ironically recognize my journey in hers. And so who am I to squash that, especially as her mom?
Yeah.
So while I might be her mom that wants to protect her and shield her from any, heartbreak or
Mhm.
frustration
Mhm.
or unfair treatment, it's what she wants to do. It's not just that it's a wanna for her. She truly wants to.
Mhm.
Um, and I honor and support that, despite my like fears for her of what she'll encounter. On a totally smaller note, here visiting her in college this week, again, the type A plus personality that I am, where everything has to have a reason and everything has to
Yeah.
have a purpose and something has to show for it. We have to honor that, when it is something beneficial for us, that is
Yeah.
a more than adequate, because, right, um, that is the reason, that is, the outcome that shows for it, why to make a choice one makes. This is a very small thing, but this week that I'm here, the temperature started off kind of like in the low 60s, which, for a Hawaii girl, it's like, oh, I brought all my, like, winter clothes. And then, yesterday and today, the temperature actually is in the mid to high 60s, and then it's going
Mm.
to get cold again. And yesterday, we had two sessions of recording, and there was like an hour and a half break in between, and which was kind of midday or early afternoon here on the East Coast. And so, of course, that's where, the temperature had warmed up. And there was such a part of me, and I had my to do list, or as I now call it, my get done list. That's a whole other episode. But, and so I was like, okay, well, I will eat lunch, here in the hotel room. I'll use the microwave. I will bang out, some charts that I have to catch up with, and, this online course that, I could bang out and be very, very productive,
Mhm.
right? That's the type A. That's a type A plus catchphrase, is being productive,
Yeah.
right? And I just told myself, I've got to eat.
Mhm.
Eating mindfully is the healthier way to go. So eating while I'm in front of a
Mhm.
computer, not as healthy. So, and that's probably actually how I'll either eat more or just at least eat more junk food, because I'm not being mindful of what I'm putting in my mouth. Practice what you preach, Ignacio. It's a sunny, warm day, and it's going to get colder through the week. Put down the computer. Do not do the charts. Do not do the online course during this 1.5 hours. You can do it later in the day when it's colder, or at nighttime. Go out, take a walk, sit on a bench, and eat your lunch. and have, quote, nothing to show for it, but actually have everything to show for it because I've just gotten my dose of, vitamin D, sunshine, fresh air, smiling people enjoying the weather. It was so well worth it. And that I want to wasn't just for pleasure. There was benefit to it
Mm-hmm.
for me,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not for anybody else. Nobody benefited from the fact that I was outside and not in the hotel room, but for me, it was a benefit, and that is enough.
And as you were talking earlier about being a parent, I was thinking about the ways in which educators, even with the best of intentions, will ask kids, well, why? Like, why do you want to do that? And then continue this habit that we have of needing to have a further justification so that, those of us that work with kids can honor that the I want because I want is, or I want it is enough. And then hopefully then they can become adults who, like you, are demonstrating and role modeling. It's okay to say, not only okay, it's like more than okay to say, well, I want to because I wanna. um so many times I I make the similar choice to eat in front of my computer rather than to go outside, and I'm going to take your lead now and do that when I feel that I wanna right now. And give both adult Zach and little Zach that permission to say that's a full sentence. I wanna, period. So yeah. I'm loving this episode right now. I've got to be honest.
Well, if I may say too, for whatever it's worth, and here's a type A plus personality coming out, because the going out in the sun, taking a walk, or not eating in front of the computer, there is justification, as type
Totally.
A plus people need. There is justification. So it actually is beyond I
Mm-hmm.
wanna. There is an I want to, because there is, let's not gloss over or romanticize, there is an element,
Mm-hmm.
for the very young, that the I wanna might not be the
Yeah.
the best choice to follow through with.
Mm-hmm.
So one can honor that that is what they want to do, but that might not
Yeah.
necessarily, well, I want to punch, Johnny in the nose. Well, I can see why you might feel that way, but don't do it just because you wanna, right? I
Right.
mean, there's that kind of momentary, reflexive, like visceral reaction that serves the purpose for the moment,
Mm-hmm.
versus leaning more beyond the I wanna to, no, actually there is an I want to, and there is benefit to it. And
Mm-hmm.
if the benefit to it is to benefit me, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. I have sat in a number of, really what I was referencing is I've sat in a number of meetings both with teachers and with parents, specifically about things like I want to play the violin, or I don't want to do chess, or these moments where a young identity is asserting themselves in a way that feels in alignment, and how often it has then the justification beyond that has occurred or happened. And so I agree with you. This is not about like, I want to punch somebody or I want to eat the cookies now. That's a very different
Yeah.
thing. I'm talking about those moments when we see a young mind
Mm-hmm.
speaking their identity out loud. And really,
Yes.
they don't have anything other than I want to say it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so pure, it's so sincere, it's so honest. And then we, with the best of intentions, want them to explain further why. Like,
Right. When
or
they don't have the tools, the vocabulary, exactly.
correct. So that's what I'm speaking to. Like in
Yeah.
those moments with young minds, we know the difference. We know the difference between I want the ice cream after dinner
Yeah.
versus, I want to play lacrosse,
Yes.
or I
Yeah.
want to play the piano. And again, this is no knock on, like, we were the family that couldn't afford piano lessons or violin lessons. So this is not like, okay, well, then you need to give in. But just in that moment where we see a young person say, I want, because it speaks to a truth of who they are, that moment to just affirm is a beautiful moment, so that when they become adults or when they grow up, they can lean back on I want, as a full and complete statement. That's really what I meant. So thank you for allowing just the clarification. And always remember that you are not just simply enough,
You are more than enough.
just as you are.
Period.
Period.
Mwah.
Ah.